I didn't turn the speaker back on. Okay. All right. So revamping the beginners classes. All right. So, Mark has this kind of training program that we've been doing for, well, ever since we started the club, really. And we have 3 meetings every month. We meet on Thursday nights. The first meeting each month is our beginner topics meeting. The second one is our advanced topics. And the third is kind of a generic general business meeting. It could be anything. We could do club business, we could have guest speakers, watch a recorded presentation, or, some other kind of activities. That just reminded me of, you guys remember the Muppet Show? And Dr. Bob was the dog and he was a surgeon. And he'd always be in the operating room and the announcer would come on and say, and now you can see Dr. Bob about to operate on so and so. And everybody would start looking up at the ceiling like, what the heck is that? Who's talking? So anyway, that just reminded me of that. Yeah, so this is what our thing has been. In the past, we had actually 4 meetings a month, believe it or not, but we've changed that. So Mark is now almost 6 years old. Can you believe that? We've been around for almost 6 years. In the early days, we had our general meeting once a month on the second Wednesday of the month. That was a Wednesday night thing. And then we had training classes on the other weeks on our Thursday nights. And we did change that to move the general meeting to a Thursday night. And then later we dropped that fourth meeting because we were feeling like we didn't have enough information or enough material to satisfy 4 weeks of meetings every month. And people needed a week off. They needed a week where they didn't have to look at us. So, but yeah, well, a lot of our members had been licensed for years, but hadn't really used their radios. I know Sherwood, for example, he had his license for a while. I don't think you'd ever keyed up, had you, Sherwood? And I know like Marcy and Karen, they got their licenses. They have KC calls. And so they got their licenses well before I did, for example. And I've had mine for 20 years. So, it's they had never been on the radio either. And we had quite a few people who were like that. They had gotten their license for some reason, probably because of a church calling or something, and then never actually done anything with it. Some of them had bought radios, some of them hadn't. And so, people were like, well, I don't know. We don't know anything about this really. We've been amateur radio operators for years, but we don't know what we're doing. At the same time, we had some operators who were much more experienced, people who had higher class licenses, people who had been hams for years, who had actually been on the radio and done things and, experienced different activities and stuff. We didn't want to hold those people back in order to support our less experienced people, but we still wanted to be able to support our less experienced people. So for the beginners and the less experienced operators, we wanted some kind of hands-on activities. We built antennas. We practiced how to talk on the radio. We programmed our radios in class. We actually had people figure out this is how you do it on your radio. So if you ever need to do it, you've done it and you actually have an idea how to do it. We talked about operating procedures and how to do things on the radio. We got people to actually run the net. People who had never talked on the radio before running a net on Sunday. Can you believe that? We were able to accomplish that at the beginnings of our club. Dan.
Can I just say that when I talk to other hams, and I'm all over the place, and especially clubs, and I tell them that because the subject inevitably will come up that someone's trying to find a net control operator, right? And I tell them that, you know what, we've been, all of our ham radio operators in the club do the net. That's one of the things that that's a normal.
That's normal for us.
Doing business.
Normal for us.
For us.
Yeah.
And they were, every single one of them, they're just absolutely amazed that there's more than 2 people that can run a net. And so I think it's awesome that everybody took that seriously and maybe you didn't have a choice in the matter. Maybe that's what it was.
Well,
It was definitely intimidating.
Steve
But
was pretty aggressive.
it wasn't bad,
Yeah,
you know.
And-
I liked it.
and it was awesome. There was one person in here. Yeah, you do it too. There was one person in here who cannot successfully run a freaking net. And to me, that is a basic ham radio skill.
It's a thing, right? You should know how to do that if you're going to be a ham radio operator.
Yeah.
Because in an emergency situation, you might be net control. If you're the first one on the air, you're net control. Sure, you can hand it off later when somebody with a better connection comes up or a better radio comes up or better experience comes up. But you're going to be doing it when you start out. You might be.
So my hat's off to everybody that took that upon themselves to be part of that solution. So thank you.
And I think that's a really impressive thing about MARC as well, is that people felt comfortable enough with the group after having met in person that they were willing to do that and take that responsibility. Because like Dan says, not a lot of clubs have one guy that does the net every week. And if that guy is sick or isn't in town, they just don't have a net, and we've had backup. We've had people come on and take over the net. When Jeff and I were over at Station 83 one time, and the cable was jacked up on the radio over there, and we weren't getting out. And another guy jumped in and took over and ran the net. And, if he hadn't done that, we wouldn't have had a net that night. And so, it's just one of those things that it's a skill that you guys have learned, right? We also started doing things for Murray City. We started going to the annual safety fair. Every year they have the safety fair at Murray Park. We've set up a booth. We set up some radios. We walked around. We've had kids talk on the radio and stuff. We've shown our equipment and everything. We've had less participation in that of late, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. And we've also done the July 4th parade 5 years running now. So I think that's been a good use of our skills and helped us to build the ability to get on the radio, talk to people, pass information, and make sure that things run smoothly. And that's really the whole point is communications, right? But doing things was a big factor in our mission back then. When we first started, it was about getting out there and doing stuff and touching things and making things happen, talking on the radio. During COVID, we couldn't meet in person. It wasn't allowed, right? And so we were forced to meet online via Zoom. And so when we started doing that, our meetings took on more of a presentation mode to them. We had slides, we had a little bit of discussion, but it was mainly spewing information out at the group and them just sitting there and receiving it. We also did start recording our presentations and putting them on the website so that people could see those things and actually get some information out of them, even if they weren't at the meeting. Quite a few club members never have ever joined a Zoom meeting. I don't have a record of that, unfortunately. We've never really kept roll on club attendance, and maybe we should have. But yeah, quite a few club members have never joined those meetings. And since COVID, they haven't been back.
Yeah, some of them that came all the time.
Yeah, haven't been coming back, right? They've come to the holiday party, but not to any meetings. They've come and done events with us. They've done the parade, but they don't come to any meetings. It's very frustrating. Yes.
I'm thinking about starting an administering program to visit our people.
To visit our less active members. Our less active members, as it were. Yes. Well, maybe we need something like that. So as I say here, post-COVID, our attendance soared to new lows. At times we've had less than 5 people here. that is super frustrating for those of us who are putting classes together and making presentations, right? I mean, I put a lot of time into my presentations. I know Dan puts a lot of time into his presentations. Um, it's very frustrating when you spend hours putting a presentation together and you show up here and there's 3 people here and you're one of them, right? Or you make a presentation that's ideal for somebody who is afraid to touch their radio, and everybody here is an extra class operator or a general class operator, right? And so it's like, oh, I know you use your radio. Why are you here? Well, I'm here because it's the meeting and I want to be here for the meetings. Well, thanks for coming, but this meeting is really for people who don't know what they're doing, right? And so it's been super frustrating. From our statistics, also, it's clear that many of our club members don't watch the online presentations. Now, we have had non-club members watch our presentations. And in fact, I think the most viewed one was my presentation on the ICS forms, which I did, I don't even remember, 3 years ago. And
They were all bots, by the way.
yeah, well, it could be, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's been very frustrating. Um,
Comment.
yes, go ahead, Ragnar.
Um, I've enjoyed the Zoom meetings because I've been unable to attend. So there's a good option there for me to go to the meeting without leaving my house.
And that's why we have the Zoom meetings, is because we know some people can't physically get here. Some people like Dave have to leave early, and we understand that. And so we do want to keep our meetings on Zoom and record them. But let's keep going. Okay. In 2024, beginning of this year, we tried something new. Our first Thursday, our basic topics meetings, we decided to devote those to a series we called Getting Started with Amateur Radio. The idea being that these would be things for non-hams to learn about amateur radio, how to get ready for the test and take the test, how to pick a radio, how to program it, that kind of stuff, and what kinds of things to do with your radio. Getting on the radio, talking to other people, and how to actually use your radio to do things. And so we thought this series was going to be really popular and really useful to people like our original group who had never actually keyed up their radios. It didn't quite turn out that way. We'll talk more about that. The advanced classes also saw some changes. We focused on specific topics and deep dives. Our goal was not to just introduce something, but to actually get into it, figure out how it works, make sure that everybody who came to the meeting had a working setup that they could take home and do something with. Get on WinLink, for example, Echolink, APRS. These are areas that we spent multiple months on, multiple weeks talking about these different things and getting people to bring their gear in, set them up, and make them work. We actually had pretty good luck with that. We had quite a few people come to that. Even people who are not club members were coming to some of those, which was really nice. And then our general meeting, we also made some changes to that. We basically wanted to have kind of a variety of topics. We attended UARC one time. We had other clubs like Salt Lake Crossroads come and visit with us for a meeting. We planned our activities like the parade and the Great Shakeout. We watched some online presentations, Dan's GMRS presentation that apparently is still happening every week at around this time. And so, we covered a bunch of these different topics, kind of a broad sampling of things. And that's been fairly well received. There's been some interest in that. There's been some lack of interest as well, but it's you can't have every meeting be ideal for everybody, and we understand that, right? So what are we going to do for 2025? Well, one of the things that Dan and I have talked about is we want to get our beginner meetings back to the roots. We want to get back members that haven't been coming, we want them to start coming to meetings again. We want our meetings to be more engaging and to be more hands-on. So Dan suggested, for example, that when you're talking about how waves work and like how does a radio wave actually look, we could set up an oscilloscope with a microphone attached to it, and people could talk in it and see what their voice looks like when it's modulated. That would be kind of cool, something that people can do. I've got a scope, you've got a scope, right? So we could do that. We have the ability to do that. We're going to do that one of these times. We're going to try to get more hands-on type activities. More, I don't want to say low level or dumbed down presentations, because it's not really dumbed down. You already have to know some stuff to be able to get your technician license, even if it's just the answers to the questions that were on the test. You have to know a few things. And so we're going to take advantage of that. Maybe we're going to build some electronic circuits. Maybe we're going to, Dan built a keyer. Maybe we'll build keyers that will let us do some Morse code stuff, practice with that. We haven't really set down a solid idea of exactly what our lessons are going to be, but they're going to be, try to be more enticing to the people who haven't been coming. Dan.
Anytime I will teach a first Thursday class, I'm going to teach it assuming my wife is in the audience that knows nothing about radios. And that's what we did when we started the club.
That is what we did when we started the club.
Because I had absolutely no idea what anybody's level was.
I don't know.
I didn't
You
know
guys
anybody.
who were here since day one probably remember us all sitting around in a circle and having a net out loud in the circle to practice net procedures.
Yeah.
You know, these are people who had never keyed up the radio before. They had never talked on the radio. If you've been experienced for a while, you might think, oh yeah, it's easy. You just push the button and talk. But remember back to the very first time you pushed that button and what that felt like when you didn't know who was going to hear you. You didn't know who was out there, if there was anybody out there. This was an opportunity that we had to all sit in a circle where you could see everybody, you knew everybody you were talking to, and talk just like you were going to talk on the radio without the radio. We'll probably do that.
And I will let you know, I feel like this is confession hour for Dan. When I got my general license, I keep on touting that my first general contact using my HF rig in my house was on PSK 31. Okay, and so I keep on, PSK 31 is a near and dear mode of communication. Okay, but the reason why I did PSK 31 is I didn't want to plug my freaking microphone in and talk to somebody because it was brand new. I was a technician. I knew how to talk to repeaters and do nets, but now my voice is going on the worldwide, yeah, potentially. And so I get it. It's a thing,
Mike Fried is real. It is not a fake thing. It's a real thing. And so,
and if that ever leaves this room, I know where you all live.
I know I watch those videos of young girls doing, like the father taking them out. These young girls are like doing that, making these contacts and whipping it out. I'm like, it made me feel like, I'm a grown man, and he's like a 12-year-old kid or 7-year-old kid doing that stuff.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
what's wrong with me?
Go ahead.
I would say if anybody wants an oscilloscope, I have a few extras. I've converted all my classes over to computer oscilloscopes. And so, well, just let me know.
Okay. I got my scope from some college down in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It was on public surplus, and I think I paid $40 for it and had my son go pick it up for me. So
Well, this is free.
I would take a free scope, but But like I say, I already have one, but I'm sure somebody else might have an interest in getting one. A scope can be really useful if you're diagnosing something weird electronically. So,
Would you consider donating one to the club, and I'll put that with our books, our
I'll
library?
even do club tectonics.
ooh,
Excellent. Excellent.
that would be great. Yeah. Our advanced meetings, we expect to continue doing the deep dives. That seems to have been fairly well received. We've had pretty good luck with that. Like I said, we're starting on the Airden deep dive, which could go 3 or 4 months. I don't know. We'll see how long it takes to get people comfortable with that. A lot of things have been going on with Airden around the valley over the last couple of months, and we'll be talking about some of that. But and our general meetings, our third Thursday meetings, will continue to do a variety of topics. Maybe see if we get some more guest speakers, maybe do some field trips. One thing that I would love to do would be to get a field trip to, say, the air traffic control facility and see how they use radios in air traffic control.
Maybe they'll let us land a few planes.
They probably will let us talk on the radio, but I don't know about anything more than that. But no, I mean I'm interested in aviation as well. My son is a pilot, and it's always been interesting to me why aviation radios are all AM, and we use FM mostly on our 2 meter stuff and 440. Why do they use AM? Well, they use AM because you can hear more than one signal at the same time. You don't have that lock-in factor that you get with FM. And so it's easier to tell, even if you can't make out what they're saying, it's easier to tell that more than one person is talking at the same time. And so they're able to detect that easier when you can actually hear all kinds of stuff happening. But I think that would be a fun field trip to do to see how all of that works. I've got to find a contact there at the FAA and see what I can do with that. But I think that would be a great field trip for us one time.
But the cool thing about something like that, excuse me for interrupting,
You're good.
is we'll be able to see the lingo that they use,
Which is different from what we use.
Ham radio operators use a lingo, right?
Yeah, we do.
And they do too.
Yeah.
Cops have their own lingo.
Yeah.
Technical.
Visiting the dispatch center would be another opportunity for us to see a place where they use radios routinely, but they're not radio operators, right?
We now have an in for the Salt Lake County
EEC,
management.
And we did do a tour there. That was pretty cool. So we could, they are interested in repeating that if people are interested. So if we had a sizable group that wanted to go, we could probably set that up again.
That sounds great to me. I'm all in for that.
Also some joint events with other clubs as well. We have done quite a few things with Taylorsville and Crossroads. There are plenty of other clubs around the area. I would love to get them involved with us and us involved with them. One thing we've talked about is having us run the net for another club and have them run our net and see how that works out, because that would give people experience talking to people that they don't know, which,
And we're kind of doing that already. I mean, Vern does it.
yeah,
There's
we have had some people who are not members run the net. So, but there's a lot of things that we can be doing, a lot of things that we want to be doing for 2025. So our back to basics. If you're a new operator, recently licensed, if you've been licensed for a while but haven't ever done a lot with the hobby, if you think you don't know enough to use the radio, or if you think you can't learn something new, or if you think it's too complicated, 2025 is going to be the year for you to come to basic topics meetings. Okay, that's the first Thursday of the month. We're going to have something hopefully interesting and exciting and fun to play around with.
Before you go from there, I want to make sure people understand, especially on the recording, that we do not have a time commitment. If it takes 4 months to talk about why a sine wave does what he does, then we'll take 4 months.
Yes.
Okay, we are not going to rush anything. I want everybody to understand even if it's at a elementary level, because that's all really we need to do,
Right.
right? And for those people who get it already, I think it will also benefit you because it'll just reinforce what you already know and additional questions will come up.
And you will find that if you already know something, you might be able to teach it to people who don't know it. You may have a different viewpoint on how something works than what we're talking about. You might be able to bring that out and share that. Believe me, I learn more teaching a class than I ever do attending a class. So I encourage people, if you're interested in a particular topic, let me know. I'll get you on the schedule. Whether it's a basic, advanced, or some general topic, I'll get you on the schedule to talk about it. I would love to have other people teaching. Dan and I were looking back over the last few years, and he and I have taught almost every class. I think there have been, what did we find? 3 that were taught by somebody else. So we would love to get other people involved in teaching.
So here's a litmus test. If you are considering what you might want to teach, ask yourself this question. What subject do I not know about? That is the answer.
That's the one you want to teach.
That's the one you want to teach because then you'll be doing the studying and it really makes a big difference if you're the one who's teaching it and you don't know a lot about it.
You will learn, trust me,
Yeah.
you will learn more about a topic when you're putting a class together because you'll start thinking, well, what if somebody doesn't know about this part? And so you'll dig into that and you'll figure it out and then you'll be able to talk about it.
The most important thing to understand is you're not up there alone.
Yes.
If you maybe you've been taught a subject more than it was a little bit too much, we'll be right behind you. You will not be able to fail.
Well, what I found nice about this club was me and my dad had gone to UARC, when I was up in university. All those guys, I mean, we were just beginners.
They all know what they're doing.
Yeah, and they didn't really come up to the people that were new and have them. Yeah, you were invited to go do stuff with them, but no one really took you to the side and said, this is how you do it.
Right.
And it was intimidating when I think some of these guys are engineers, you know, because some of the stuff that they did on homebrew, I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. If you go to their homebrew night and you look at some of the things that they built and it's like, holy crap. See you, Dave. Thanks for coming. Yeah. You're looking at it like, man, I never could have built that, you know?
right.
Yeah, a lot of it was that, I remember,
Yeah.
going up there and some like Gordon, you know, and.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
some of the other ones would be teaching this, man, but
yeah, you were
they
like,
they don't even say hi and they look at it.
no.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
They had their little group, you know, they all went to pizza afterwards.
Yeah. And see, that's,
All they had was-
we don't want to be, we don't want to be another UARC. We already have UARC.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you want to go to UARC, go to UARC.
I mean, I've got more experience in this particular group of, or this club than I ever did up there.
Yeah.
Because no one really wanted
And-
to, hey, let me show you how to do this.
And trust me, if you see an interesting topic that UARC is going to put on, their meetings are the second Thursday.
Yeah,
It's the same night as our deep dive. What we can do, if it's one that's of general interest to the club members, we can always swap our deep dive to the third Thursday that month.
well, we might be able to, do they do their Zoom or anything like that? Maybe.
No.
They do actually. They put it on YouTube. It's live on YouTube.
Okay,
It's on YouTube. So yeah, you could view it
We
there.
could probably just watch.
We
like
could do that.
on here.
That's probably the best way to do it because it is a.
Parking is
Parking.
not so
Oh, yeah,
bad,
it's-
yeah.
That was the only bad thing I hated about,
Yeah.
I was worked all the way up West Valley.
Although if you go, you can win a door prize.
Oh, that's true.
So, you know, that's always a thing.
I never won them.
What's the rule now, I'm not familiar with it, up to date, who can administer an FCC license like for a technician?
So for a technician, you have to be a general or extra. And you have to be certified as a VE.
And then you probably have to do the paperwork. and get
You do it in coordination with a VEC. And the VEC is the coordinator who is taking responsibility for the paperwork, but yeah. So Dan, you've proxied, or
I'm-
proctored tests for,
I'm a VE, and yeah, you have to get licensed, and if you do, it's freaking easy.
Yeah,
to
well, I'm in
get.
the state of Utah, GROL, exactly.
Okay,
And so if anybody wants one of those, you know.
yeah, it's very easy, to get if you want to be.
It changed too when I got my license, you know, they automatically they did all the work and they got what do you call that, you're beginning for the license, and they send it in. Now they have to go make your own.
oh, your forms and stuff, get your FCC, FRN number and all of that jazz. Yeah,
Yeah, that's not.
no, it's easy. It's not hard. In fact, we had a class on how to do all of that. We talked
It's
about all
not
of that.
hard, it's just people trying to do it.
And that's the thing too now, since you have to pay to renew your license now, everybody, even people who never had an FRN, just been renewing their license every 10 years. They've got to get an FCC Coors account and be able to pay their $35 now if they want to renew. So you have to learn how to do that regardless. So what we're going to be doing is back to the basics. We're going to start with learning how radio works. We're going to talk about the history of radio. We're going to talk about tubes. There's so many cool things with tubes, man. I'll tell you, tubes are amazing. And when you think about, I was reading this thing the other day where they were talking about the first pentad tubes back in the 40s. And these are tubes that basically do 5 things at once, right? There's like 5 different things happening inside the tube. And just the developments and now they've got ones that'll do like 7 or 8, I think is how far they got before they started going into the semiconductors, you know.
I'll always add one to that, because they also all make great heaters.
Yes, they do have to have a heating filament, right, to make the electrons come off. So, yeah. So we'll talk about tubes and how they work. We'll talk about some electronic stuff and how it works. We'll talk about some physics, but we're going to keep it simple. It's not going to be college physics 105 or whatever, you know. We're not doing that to you. We don't want you to come in here and think, oh my gosh, this is a college level class. This is not a college level class, okay? This is not even a high school level class. At the most, this is like junior high physics we're talking about. But knowing some of the underlying physics
Let's think of another word.
is actually helpful. Well, it's not technology, it's the physical properties of stuff,
Much better.
right? So, but we'll talk about that. But we're going to keep it simple. We're going to make sure it's easy to understand, and we're going to spend as much time as we need to on each topic. So it's not going to be first week we're talking about history of the radio. Next month we're talking about tubes. No. If we need to spend a couple of months talking about history of radio and how it works and why we got it, we'll do it. If we need to dig into electronics and actually understand how semiconductors are made and why they're done the way they're done and what they do, we'll take the time to do that. Because it's important to get that understanding. Yeah.
There's a movie called Empire of the Air, and it tells the story from the beginning, all the way through back in the news and so forth, and it's free on YouTube.
Yeah. Maybe we'll watch that. I don't know. I'll check it out. Empire of the Air. Empires of the Air. Okay.
Goes through, you know, all of the lawsuits and so forth, and how RCA ruined
You know, and that might be good to, like, bring up a few weeks before the class and say,
Watch this.
to kind of, wet your whistle.
Yeah.
Watch these presentations, you know, if you got the time.
Yeah, I have videos and everything, if somebody wanted to borrow, but they're free on YouTube.
Well, maybe we can extract some pieces out of them and include in our lessons. So we'll definitely look into that. I'll check that out. Thanks. Yeah, the main thing that we want people to know is MARC is here for you guys, right? We don't do this just because we like to do this. We do this because we want to share what we know and share it with other people who don't know it yet. So we're going to have some hands-on stuff. if you've ever wondered what a radio wave looks like or how an antenna actually gets the wave out of the radio and into the air, or gets it out of the air and puts it back in the radio, we're going to talk about that kind of stuff. If you've ever wondered what waves are, I'm going to bring a slinky and we're going to make some waves. Okay. So we're going to see. And if you've wondered what a standing wave ratio actually is, well, we're going to model it so you can actually see what the heck that means and what's happening when we say the SWR is 1.5 or whatever. And you'll understand why that matters, because those are important concepts that, you know, we throw those terms around. Oh, your SWR has to be close to 1.1 to 1, you know, that's the best. What does that mean? People don't know that. I don't even know that. I mean, I'd have to go look it up, right? So we're going to learn that stuff. A lot of these things won't translate well into a Zoom presentation. So attending in person will be more important. I can't put a slinky on Zoom. I guess I could point a camera at it, but it's not the same as being able to hold it in your hand and make the wave, right? And we want you to ask questions. We want you to think about things and stretch your knowledge. That's why we're doing this. We want people to learn things and apply it to amateur radio. There's a reason you chose to get licensed. We're going to try to help you find that reason if you don't know what it is now. Once we understand how radio works, we're going to dig into amateur radio service. Why do we have an amateur radio service? We'll learn why it was created. What's it for? We'll talk about what we can do. We'll talk about how we can do it, and we'll talk about why we do it. And we'll talk about why you wanted to be an amateur radio operator when you first took your test. And then once we have a foundation, we'll learn about radios. We'll understand, how does a radio work? How does it do its thing? We'll understand what the limitations of our equipment are and what the capabilities of our equipment are. We'll figure out things that we can and can't do, and we'll understand our options for additional privileges, license classes, better gear, whatever. We'll be able to teach other people about the hobby, and we'll be ready to use our skills and our abilities, not just for our own purposes, but to serve other people as well. That's it. That's all I got. Thanks, guys. Any questions? Any comments?
Why is everybody's meeting on Thursday?
I don't know. Not everybody is. I think Taylorsville meets on Wednesday.
Yes.
Once
a month.
Utah Valley and the one out here and Murray are all Thursday, and those are the three that are kind of within.
When I started the club, that was one of the questions I asked everybody is.
What's the
when
best
would you
night?
like it?
Yeah.
And Thursday was
Interesting. There must be some.
most people were available on Thursday.
Just nothing else happens on Thursday.
Well, UARC meets on see, the other thing is most clubs meet once a month, if that. Some clubs meet every other month. Some clubs rarely meet in person. We, from the beginning, have met multiple times a month. And, you know, we're like the only club around here that I know of that does that. And when we kind of broke this out into the basic, advanced, and general topics model, we've kind of stuck with that and tried to keep a focus on something that people who are beginners can get something out of, something that people who are more experienced can get something out of, and something that's different or unusual or in some way cool or interesting that people can get something out of.
I have a question for especially the more advanced users. Coming to the basic class, is that a waste of your time?
Yeah, I'm not an advanced, I'm a beginner radio user, but I'm an electrical engineer, so I would say if the beginner classes are getting more basic, probably not.
Probably not what.
Probably it's gonna probably be stuff
That you already know,
extremely familiar with.
then you can teach.
That may or may not happen.
How about radio operators, experienced radio operators? Do you find it useful? The beginner's class? Or a waste of your time?
I'm still a beginner.
I'm not talking to you then.
I'm not talking to you.
That's right.
I say, I always think it's good to go through those things, probably you forget some of the basics. And sure helped me. I got my license back in 1957. You know,
Yeah.
I think for me, this is going back to basics. Just kind of remind you somewhat what's going on and all, and then, I've had my license for years, I've got on, Jake had the, Jake nets and all the time. But then the reason those stopped, because I had guy died, you know. And the whole thing just kind of posted, then.
I kind of equate any. What do you call it? Any skill. To, I think we're trying to use the same model. How many people are into shooting house? Okay, do you think for 1 second? Forgetting the basics is a good thing on. When you're holding a firearm? You have to do the basics every single time, right?
Like getting on a
Otherwise,
bike,
people
you
get hurt.
haven't ridden for a long time, you know.
Say again?
It's like getting on a bike, you haven't ridden for a long time,
Yeah,
you know, like, oh crap.
yeah, so I mean, I think radios. Ham radio and any radio communication is the same thing. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've explained radio waves. But each time. You know, it's important to me to know what it is, right? That's something we can't see, right? And so just understanding how it excites the metal structure of the antenna is cool stuff, right? And
It's interesting.
if you don't know, it's just magic. And I want to pull the magic out of it. I want you to be able to go to Las Vegas and say, I know how you do that, you know, with radios. Because then when you're to that level, which everybody can be, it becomes fun, because then you know how to control stuff you can control. You know what you can't control, and you know how to work around that. You know, that's what makes a great radio operator, right? Especially when you're in the field. You know, World War II operators, you know, with their big HF backpacks, they were doing things, from what I read, I mean, they understood how the radio works, so they were able to piece together some pretty archaic stuff, you know, to make communications happen. And I'm preaching to the choir, so I know.
Well, and I like not only that, though, we did the presentations like when you did for like. Showing how to filter water and. So, because it was part of not only the ham radio world, but it's also when the crap hits a fan, you gotta survive. So the radio is gonna be a big part of it, but there's a lot of other skills on the side.
If you ain't well, if you're sick, you're not gonna be able to use the radio.
Right.
Right, so maybe that's something we can do to our the third class, general
Yes,
class.
that would be ideal
is
for
do
that.
those type of classes.
Yeah, I
And-
enjoyed those a lot because like, I mean, I haven't done it yet. I mean, as far as getting the stuff, but I mean, I kept that, I took the notes and I kept that and
Okay,
I just haven't bought the stuff to do it.
right,
Like
right,
those seeds that you use.
yeah.
I mean, I wanna get some of those seeds, but I forgot the name of them.
Well, and then, you know, the CERT training is another area that we may incorporate that into our class schedule at some point and redo the CERT training again. I wouldn't mind taking it again. It's been what, 2.5 years
Yeah, about that.
since we did it. And
Taking it once a year is not,
it's not
a bad
bad.
thing.
It's not a bad idea. Keeping those
Well,
ideas
thank
and
you.
concepts fresh in your mind.
Less clumsy you'll be.
Yeah.
Cause like I know the first time I did it, I felt like. I felt okay, but it's like there were some things we were doing like, this would, if this happens tomorrow, I'm gonna look like an idiot. Okay, that's what I kind of felt like, you know, like, I took the cert class, but you know, bear with me.
Right.
Because, you know,
Right.
stumble through this,
Well, practice makes perfect.
right? But I think the second time, it was better because we used the radios in our.
We did.
Insert this last time, and I thought that was a good play.
And I've been talking to Mac Lund about there is a communications module in the CERT training that they've never done. I talked to him about having one of us teach that module. And he's interested in us doing that. So that may be a thing that we incorporate into future CERT classes. He's still, you know, working on arranging classes and stuff like that. So if you have a group that is interested, the ideal size for a CERT training is 8 to 15 people. I just talked to him at the chili cook-off thing a couple months ago, and he said, yeah, he's definitely interested in incorporating that module into future classes. So, you know, that's something that I think being preparedness is a thing that gets a lot of people into amateur radio. And then once you get into it and you see all of the different things you can do, you may find that that's the only thing you care about, or you may find that you develop other interests and you want to explore other interests and things.
Well, yeah, I mean, I want to get a AHF, but right now it's a budget for me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, now I'm on my own, I'm paying the mortgage and everything, and all bills. And so it's like, it's really ticking me off because they have all these good sales, like Black Friday, I'm like, you know, I just don't want to, I can't go into that debt yet.
Yeah.
You know, next year I'll be making more money and then I
Well,
want to drop it,
and-
but I could see myself sitting up in the mountains camping.
There are
Yeah, doing
options
that.
too, where older operators might have an extra HF radio they'd be willing to let go for a reasonable amount of money.
Yeah.
So, you know, keep that in mind as well. We haven't really done a lot of swap net type stuff, but
Yeah.
there are swap meets annually.
I
There's
never could make it because I was out working or something.
Yeah.
Because it was always
You know,
on
I had
Saturday.
that one in February in Davis County.
yeah, that'll be coming up. The VHF Society one will be coming up in February again. Yeah.
And they're on exactly the same day, same time.
Well, they're on the same day.
Same day,
They,
same.
That's-
they were like last year.
That's
Yeah.
dumb. Why would
Yeah.
they do that?
I let them know.
That seems really dumb to me. Okay, anyway, so that's what I have. I'm gonna go ahead and close the recording.